much for joining us today. My name is Vicki Townsend. I'm the founder and president of Divorce Right, and we provide training for HR professionals and company supervisors, and we provide divorce coaching and case management, providing the guidance and direction your divorcing employees so desperately need. Divorce is a huge disruptor, not only to the employee going through it, but to the company they work for. And our coaches have a unique perspective on divorce. They have a deep understanding of the legal, financial, and emotional aspects of divorce, and they can handle even the highest conflict of cases with compassion and professionalism. And our coaches are trained to look at the entire picture, helping your employees make good decisions based on their goals and their expectations. So if you're an HR benefits manager or an HR benefits provider or consultant, please reach out to us and see if adding our suite of solutions is a good fit for your business. And as a reminder, we have SHRM credits for SHRM members, and we will be posting a link at the end of this broadcast so that you can grab those. And I want to introduce you to Paulette Rigo. She is my friend, she is my colleague, and she is an incredible certified divorce coach and mediator, and is one of the best in the business, and is the director of coaching and case management here at Divorce Right. And today we are talking about something very important, and that's our families with special needs children. And that today we are joined by our special guest, Mary Ann Hughes. Mary Ann's life journey took her from the business world, earning an MBA and working at several Fortune 100 companies, to becoming a full-time mom and advocate for her sons on the autism spectrum. And then after her divorce, forming a coaching and consulting company, Special Family Transitions, to help other parents navigate the overwhelm and complexities of divorce involving a child with a disability. Over the last several years, Mary Ann has worked hard to become a certified divorce specialist, a certified divorce coach, as well as a certified special needs divorce coach, a program which she helped inspire and create. She's active in the special needs community and is co-director of the special needs chapter at the NADP. To continue to find ways to support special needs families, Mary Ann has recently received credentials as a mediator and a family law and divorce mediator, and is about to take a course to become a parenting coordinator and facilitator. Mary Ann resides in Houston, Texas, but helps special needs families around the country when facing challenges before, during, and after her divorce. Welcome, Mary Ann. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Vicki and Paulette. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate you inviting me to talk about this huge problem facing about 80% of families with special needs going through divorce at some point.
What was that? Say that statistic again.
The number I've heard is about 80% of families with a child with some sort of disability will face divorce, whether the child is young or older. And I saw a number as high as 87% the other day in Psychology Today. So it's a huge number. It's a big problem for all these families. We hope that families can work through issues and won't have to deal with it. But the reality is it does happen. I didn't think it would happen to me, but after 20 years of marriage, that's what I was facing. So yeah, it can happen anytime, whether it's a young family or somebody maybe with an older child.
Right. And, one of the things that I remember in doing my research was that a lot of times a family will lose their benefits because of a poorly crafted settlement statement. And I don't think that reflects on our family law attorneys as much as, family law attorneys go to school to become attorneys. They don't go to understand Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and Medicare. They don't understand those types of benefits and the impact that settlement statement can make. So I hope that you guys are going to sit back and join us for the next 15 or 20 minutes as we discuss this. If you have employees with special needs children, this is for you. So Paulette, I'll let you take it away.
Yes, Mary Ann, first of all, thank you so much for your time and this very needed conversation, and your expertise, having gone through this both personally and professionally, makes a huge difference. I know in the work I do, whether I'm mediating with a couple or I'm coaching an individual through their divorce, more times than not, I'm seeing an uptick in the families having a special needs child, whether they be very, highly functional or all the way to, lifelong care needed, whatever that basis is, it's coming up more and more. So I don't exactly know the reason for that, but as you mentioned, that study, 80. I've even heard from a dear friend of mine, Susan Bernstein, who does this work as well. Closer to the 90-ish. And I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, whatever. Anything over 50 is a lot, right? So there's a high percentage of that. So not only do families who have a special needs child have different needs besides the special ones of the child, but it makes it more specific, and more the need of the clarification of the language is highly not the knowledge needs to be there, right? I see that a lot. So let's just, and you're being a pioneer too, and really having the access to that. So it's so needed, and I thank you for that. So let's talk a little bit about the nitty gritty about how does a special needs divorce differ from a, dare we say, regular divorce?
Sure. And as you mentioned, divorce is hard anyway, and a lot of families go through these challenges. But you take that and everything that a family would go through in terms of divorce, the emotional overwhelm and everything else, and you add on top of that the complexities involved with planning and helping the child with special needs transition during the process and afterwards. And so one of the biggest concerns is what's going to happen to my child in the future, and how are they going to go through and cope with this divorce. And so families with a child who go through this, the child's needs don't end at 18, right? In a typical divorce, you may consider child support, parenting plan, and all those things kind of go away at age 18. Well, the reality is most of our families that we're talking about here, that child's going to have ongoing needs into adulthood, and sometimes indefinitely forever. And so it becomes really important to think about that now during the divorce process and not wait till afterwards. A mistake I see a lot of families making, and you kind of alluded to some of this earlier, is they'll say, well, we'll deal with that later. The lawyers will go back and modify and mediate again. And sadly, I've seen so many cases where if it's not included up front in the initial paperwork, it's not going to perhaps be approved by a judge, or it'll be a lot more expensive in terms of legal process and involvement to get those disability findings in place and ongoing child support. So know that if you have a child with a disability, those needs don't end at 18. Child support may not end at 18 or whatever it may end in your state. Texas, where I am, you can have indefinite child support, meaning lifelong, but you do have to prove disability. And some people do it now, some people do it when they're older. But I'd recommend, as much as you can, try to incorporate all those things. And as Vicki mentioned, a lot of people are not really understanding or don't have the experience and expertise to know how to phrase things in those decrees. And so it's really important to work with a team of people who really understands the nuances of a special needs divorce. You've got from divorce coaches to family law attorneys, estate planning attorneys, and even financial professionals who all can contribute and be team members and players to help you consider all the different things you want to consider as part of the divorce.
I have a little of experience because my husband's the treasurer of Two Sparrows Village, which is a place where special needs adults between the ages of 25 and 55 can live in a community where they have supervision. But it's mostly the situation also that with a normal divorce, those decisions about what happens with the child when they become emancipated at the age of 18 and graduated high school don't end there, right? So we have that interim period between when they are in the eyes of the court, we're done, like, oh, they got out of high school. But that plan needs to be intact with decision making about their best interests with education, medical, extracurricular, and religion, but also where are they going to live, right? So housing is a big issue. Like, where are they going to live, and who is going to provide that care for them over the duration of their life? But also, parents eventually die and the children are younger. So we have a deeper level that I've seen of, beneficiaries and life insurance policies and additional language that needs to be there about once mom and dad have passed. And, even if you are a super young parent and you're still in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, not in your 120s, when the adult child is now an elderly person, we have a lot of decisions to make that, normal divorces don't. As much as I want to take care of my 70-year-old children, I probably won't be here.
Right. And like you mentioned, there's so many complexities and so many things to think about. And that is why this process is so stressful for so many families who have a child with special needs as they embark on it. And then, like you said, even after the divorce, all these things they have to face.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more like a long-term strategy if you're thinking of it in general. So let's take a little bit about the additional or maybe separate stressors or fears or things that people have to really address that could affect an employee with a special needs child as they're going through the divorce. Because I'm assuming special needs divorces are typically not short.
No, they're not, because there is so much to consider, and the ones that are short end up having to go back, and that becomes more complicated later.
Right.
So some parents, in a lot of cases, you have maybe one parent who's a primary caregiver. They may still be working, or they may not, and then you have, one who maybe earns more money and brings more to the home and maybe works longer hours, possibly. And so the one who's the primary caregiver has the day in, day out responsibility and may know exactly who to contact in case of emergency, how to deal with the child's behaviors, medical issues, and so on. And so a big stress is knowing the divorce is going to happen. They may not feel comfortable that the other parent has spent enough time learning those ways to help the child, and their parenting style may be different. And so there's that discomfort. And then that other child the other parent on the flip side may not feel comfortable that they can take care of the child on their own. So some people fight about that, but the best way to do that is maybe work together when they're still together, or maybe divorce is on the horizon, so that each parent is comfortable with each parent, the other one, have in their possession time, taking care of those needs that are so critical.
Yeah, because co-parenting with a normal situation is challenging all in of itself, right? I mean, when they're with me, I have my rules. When they're with my spouse, they have their rules. And we're not so worried about the individual quirks or idiosyncrasies of the child at the moment because, well, kids are kids. But, when there's two different households and there's specific needs that have to be maintained or directed towards the needs of a special needs child who now is becoming a special needs adult, that I could see the fear of those stressors of, well, if I'm not there and I'm the primary caregiver and it's their time with them, how do I know for sure that my child or adult with special needs are really met, right? It goes beyond the just like, did they do their homework?
Right, exactly. And to your point, co-parenting will never end, right? Not 18, then say goodbye. No, you're going to have to maintain the relationships. Hopefully, both parents will continue to be involved. I've seen, sadly, a lot of cases that's not happening. But the goal is for each parent to continue to be involved, provide the support, whether it's emotional, financial, or hopefully both. And so, when they were together, it was a team effort. And so, maybe one parent needed a break, or the other one would come in. But you've got now that one parent having 24-hour-a-day duty. They're usually the only adult at home. They may or may not have ability to bring in a helper or respite providers or caregivers to assist them. And so that's very stressful for a caregiver or the parent on duty to be on 24 hours. They may not sleep well. They may be stressed out. They may be trying to balance other responsibilities and children. So it's definitely a lot, especially for the primary caregiver if they've got the majority of the time with that child. But even for the parent who's not, maybe just has weekends, it's still a challenge to figure out how to manage that.
Right. So let's walk down the road a little bit more, the path of like, the divorce is final, but as we mentioned, the co-parenting and maybe some other issues are not just, okay, a fait accompli, we're done. What are some additional thoughts or impacts that a special needs divorce, or a divorce that includes a special needs child, include post-divorce? Because we're making it seem so, simplistic that, if you don't have a special needs child and your child is, aged out of the decision-making process. But in this case, it doesn't. Are there other concerns legally or through the divorce process that they have to deal with, long term? What do they have to think about post-divorce that maybe we don't even know about?
Right. So in addition to the child support issues and the possession plans, parenting plans, really, we want to look at this as a hopefully in terms of what's best interest of the child and how do we help that child. My experiences with kids with autism, and a lot of those children have difficulty transitioning, accepting change, and dealing with going from house to house. And so we want to work as much as we can to prepare that child for divorce, and even after divorce. How do we continue to have smooth transitions, let them know what to expect? Ideally, you want to have a regular parenting predictable schedule for them. Maybe create a calendar, depending on their age. You could have as a visual schedule. And I created something called a social story in my divorce because I couldn't really find professionals to help. It was hard to find psychologists to help support them. I wanted to do everything I could to make this as smooth a transition as I could for them and know that they were loved by both parents and we were there for them, and things would look a little bit different, but I had to help them through that. And so, I think that's really important is how do we bring the kids in? How do we not fight? How do we set a good example for the children as a role model that we are for for them through this process? So there's things that we can do to help them adjust and create ways for instance, information to be shared, whether it's medical needs. There's different apps you can use. There's ways to continue to communicate. So yeah, definitely it doesn't end once you divorce. You're going to have to keep communicating. And legally, some things you can do in terms of guardianship and other arrangements. You can be co-guardians, you may have a sole guardian, but still you want that other parent hopefully to continue to be involved. And as I mentioned, sadly, sometimes that doesn't happen. And so we have to find ways for additional people to come in and help and be part of that village, that community to support that family.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's so complicated. On its best day, divorce is really difficult, but to add to it all of the additional needs that a family that are going through this actually require. So we're here talking about how an employee needs the support of divorce coaching and case management so that they don't make the mistakes that where their child loses their benefits. And there's so many more, but what do you think of some of the ways are that an employer can actually support that employee before, during, and after their divorce? What would you recommend for HR to know?
Yeah, so definitely know it's gonna, like you said, it may take a long time to get through this process. They may deal with a lot of stresses. They may have a lot of anxiety, whether it's the beginning, during, like I said, or end of the divorce. So just be understanding as much as you can, as they may need maybe perhaps a flexible schedule, so that whether it's during divorce, perhaps they have to have lawyer meetings, but more importantly, being there for the child. And so these days, a lot of work can be done from home. So that is helpful. Some child's, may need to be taken to therapies or different ways to support the child. For instance, I had a call today as I was preparing for our meeting. My son, who's higher functioning, had to call me from his program because of an issue that he wasn't able to resolve on his own. And so even though you think, everything's fine now, settle down, you never know when these calls are going to come in. So hopefully, an employee can take these calls during the workday or find ways to have some flex time or ways to be able to take care of what they need to and still be productive at home. And sometimes, work can be done perhaps after hours. The schedules are crazy for a parent on duty. So maybe some deadlines can be flexible in terms of, or work assignments can be done at home or strange hours that when the kids are put to bed or whatever the case may be. So, but I think providing resources is helpful too. As you mentioned, the legal expense can be great, and sometimes there's a need for guardianships and trusts to be developed. Like you said, it's real important to have the first and third party trust to maintain the child's benefits, and that's a whole different conversation. But we want to make sure that's done correctly so that the child's monies are preserved and child support needs to be paid a certain way. But the point of that is that you have to work with attorneys who understand that. And so some companies may offer legal support within their company or references to ones that that are recommended. So people are always looking for information. You know, how do I find an attorney? How do I find coaches or lawyers or even financial professionals? Those are a really important person to help out, to help consider what are the long-term financial needs of my child. How do I agree as to what support will be appropriate for my child in terms of child support and ongoing, like we mentioned earlier, what are the costs for those residential type facilities and future plans, when I'm gone. Those are big stressors that people have. So anything you can do. And then another thing that's helpful is even the day-to-day activities. And so, ABA therapy and different speech and occupational therapy, sometimes there's maybe health plans that maybe provide a better benefit than others. So I think looking at the different health plans an employer offers and which one will best meet the needs of that family, I think it's an important thing that people need to look at, and how to go through those claims process and so on, that people spend so much time trying to work with insurance companies. So if you can find a really good plan that your company may offer that will address some of those things, I think that would be helpful as well.
I think so too. So, you mentioned a few, like I know that even with a, traditional divorce, if, I think Paulette, you may have called it a regular divorce, whatever, and I don't want to minimize or even, make light of the situation for families with special needs children, especially abled. But what kind of teams is this family looking at? What professionals could help the employee during the divorce process? What are the team members that they need?
Sure. So most families will run out and just go to an attorney right away. And that may not be the best approach for you, because there's a lot of things you want to do, you want to think about before you get there. So kind of one, to process your emotions, and two, to come up with a game plan and a vision for your divorce and figure out what you want. To start thinking about some of these things that we discussed today about what is the future going to look like for my child? What are they going to need? And making sure then to find an attorney who is experienced in that area. As we mentioned, there's many divorces in this space and many attorneys out there, but not all of them have the expertise that is necessary. So I would definitely screen and ask the questions to the attorney about which cases they've had, and making sure that you get maybe recommendations from people who in that community who've been through that. That's probably the best way. And of course, as a certified special needs divorce coach, I can also provide some of those resources and names. But we also talked about a financial person. So there's a designation called a chartered special needs consultant. Yes. And those individuals are trained and understand all those nuances that we need to consider for now and in the future. And so that's a big help person to have on your team, as well as perhaps a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst, which can help look at maybe the parents' financial position and how to make decisions in divorce about which assets and how to divide up the property. So it's important to note that we want to make good decisions in terms of the division of property as well as child support. And so I kind of, in my divorce, saw those as two separate buckets, even though they overlap. And so you want to, you may make, depending on your situation and the laws in your state, you may get a disproportionate share of the marital property, and you may get a higher than guideline child support amount. So keep those things in mind if you're the parent who maybe is the lower wage earner, or the whole situation is going to require both parents to work together to figure out how are those child's needs going to be met. And that's why it kind of goes back to first identifying what are those child's needs as much as you can. It's hard, granted, when they're young, but depending on what it is, how are we going to work together, whether it's one person contributing more financially and one person maybe contributing more in terms of their time, or sometimes there's 50-50. And so, you got to figure out what's best for that child and the situation, and try to minimize, if you can, the transitions back and forth. But, you got to do what works for your family and for your child, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, when we talked about the stress of a divorce and adding the stress to a family that is already experiencing stress at such high levels, this is why we do what we do. This is why we bring to the table solutions for one, that it's the second highest life stress event, behind a second only to losing a spouse, right? The death of a spouse. So imagine the day-to-day stressors of raising a child with special needs, and then having to, help them go through a divorce. Please reach out to us. Reach out to Marianne. I'm going to put her website up one more time. And here at Divorce Right, Marianne is one of our coaches. If you are an employer, if you are an EAP plan provider, if you are an insurance broker, your employees so desperately need this service to navigate the waters of a very complicated labyrinthine system. We are here to help and make that process a little bit kinder, a little bit gentler, and a little bit easier for the families that need it the most. So as I promised at the beginning of the hour, we have SHRM credits for our SHRM members that are watching this. So I'm going to put that code up right here so that you can go back and grab those credits. And we appreciate you so much. And next week we have Jill Kaufman. She is a divorce coach, a therapist, and a co-parenting expert. So we'll be talking about issues around co-parenting and how to help your employees manage that process while they're at work, so that they don't have to be distracted and they can focus and be happy at work and be a productive employee. So we're here to serve. If there's anything that we can do, please reach out to us here at divorcerightinc.com. And we look forward to serving and helping your employees as they go through a rather stressful time. Marianne, thank you so much. Paulette, as always, thank you so much for doing this with me. And we will see you all next week, Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern on LinkedIn Live. Bye for now, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.